You're thrust into the limelight as a 17-year-old on Britain's Got Talent.
But it must just be a dream come true.
It is. It really is. Every single day, I pinch myself.
Jonathan Antoine stunned the world on Britain's Got Talent. A shy teen with the voice of an opera legend, winning hearts and going viral overnight. Most people think they know how that story ends. He got famous, released some albums, and faded into classical music fame. But what if I told you that's barely scratching the surface? Because behind that angelic voice was a brutal battle with bullying, a hidden autism diagnosis, and a mental health journey that nearly broke him.
My darling, I've hungered for.
And after the cameras stopped rolling, Jonathan's life took twists no one could have predicted. Massive weight loss, a life-changing romance, secret struggles, and a reinvention so powerful it redefined his entire career. In this video, I'm going to unpack what really happened to Jonathan Antoine after the talent show, and why his story might be the most surprising and inspiring of them all. He stepped onto the stage with shaking hands and eyes full of doubt, but what came out of his mouth changed his life forever. At just 17, Jonathan Antoine didn't look like your typical star. But the moment he sang, time seemed to freeze. He wasn't supposed to be here. Not really. Bullied at school, misunderstood, and weighed down by his own insecurities, Jonathan often hid behind oversized clothes and unspoken thoughts. But everything shifted the day a teacher paired him with Charlotte Giaconelli for a simple duet. The song, the prayer, the impact, life-altering. The performance stunned their classmates. But that was only the beginning. But here's where it gets interesting. That one duet unlocked something inside Jonathan. It gave him a glimpse of what could be. By the time they auditioned for Britain's Got Talent, Jonathan had already endured enough pain to make most people quit. Yet he stood on national television, trembling. But when he opened his mouth, even Simon Cowell's jaw dropped. You won't believe what happened next. That first note didn't just win over the judges, it sparked a cultural moment. Millions of viewers were suddenly asking, who is this boy with the voice of an opera god? Jonathan wasn't just a contestant, he became a symbol of raw, untamed potential, breaking through every doubt, every label, and every rule. But that was only his first act. Before the standing ovations and record deals, Jonathan Antoine was just a quiet boy from Essex, with a voice no one saw coming. But what really shaped him wasn't the applause, it was what happened in the shadows. Jonathan's musical journey began at age 11 when he walked through the doors of West Hatch High School. He didn't know it yet, but fate had planted two people there who would change everything. His music teacher, Jenny Ewington, and the head of music, Jeanette Brown. They didn't just hear talent, they heard something extraordinary, something that didn't belong in a classroom, and they knew they had to act. But listen to this. It wasn't instant transformation. Jonathan was shy, cripplingly so. Singing wasn't just about pitch for him, it was about courage, about daring to be seen. And with every note he sang, that courage grew. He performed Bring Him Home at a regional festival and won Young Musician of the Year at just 13. But even then, few people saw what was building behind the scenes. Then came the Royal Festival Hall. Picture it, a timid teenager standing under the bright lights of one of London's most iconic venues, delivering Ave Maria with the poise of a seasoned tenor. He stunned the audience. But the most shocking part? He was just getting started. Hold that thought, because it connects to something even crazier. By age 14, Jonathan was auditioning for every major conservatory in London. And guess what? He got accepted to all of them. Every single one. Jonathan Antoine wasn't waiting for fame to find him. He was becoming undeniable. It all started with a wedding request. A teacher, 2 students, and a song. That's it. No fame, no cameras. Just a moment that would accidentally launch one of the most iconic duos in Britain's Got Talent history. And it almost didn't happen. Jeanette Brown, Jonathan's music teacher, needed singers for her wedding. She paired Jonathan with Charlotte Giaconelli, another student with a silky smooth voice. Their assignment? Perform the prayer at the ceremony. But what happened next would ignite something magical. Their voices didn't just complement each other, they collided in harmony that felt otherworldly. In that small church, a duo was born, a partnership that would captivate millions. But here's the twist. Jonathan almost didn't audition for Britain's Got Talent. His confidence was shattered by years of bullying, body shaming, and feeling invisible. He thought he wasn't good enough, but with Charlotte by his side, he took the leap. They walked onto that stage as nervous teenagers and walked off as overnight sensations. Don't scroll yet. What happened during that audition is now legendary. The judges braced for awkwardness. The audience murmured in doubt. But the moment the prayer began, the room transformed. Their blend of classical training and emotional storytelling sent chills through the nation. Simon Cowell, known for his brutal honesty, was visibly moved. The standing ovation said it all. That moment was the beginning of something far bigger than either of them imagined. But Jonathan's real test was still to come. When the spotlight turned from duo to solo, they didn't win, but somehow, they won more than most champions ever do. Jonathan and Charlotte placed second in Britain's Got Talent. But what came next would redefine their futures and set Jonathan on a path no one saw coming. Their final performance of The Prayer left the audience in tears. Judges praised their chemistry, their control, their raw talent, yet it was that silver finish, just shy of the trophy, that launched them into a platinum future. Within weeks, Simon Cowell signed them to a $1 million deal with Psycho Music. Suddenly, these two high school kids were recording artists, releasing their first album together, which soared up the classical charts and made headlines on both sides of the Atlantic. But that's not all. Their second album, Perhaps Love, revealed a shift. While Charlotte leaned toward musical theater, Jonathan's voice began reaching operatic new heights. Fans could hear it. He was evolving, bigger, bolder, more powerful. Their voices still blended beautifully, but something had changed. And here's where it gets crazy. In 2014, just 2 years after the show, they announced their split, but not because of conflict, because they had both grown. Sony offered them individual deals. Charlotte headed to the West End, while Jonathan took a deep breath and stepped out alone into the unknown. Now he had no partner to lean on, no harmony to fall back into. It was time to prove he could carry the stage and the world on his own, and you won't believe what happened when he did. He was no longer part of a duo, no safety net, just one voice, one spotlight, and the pressure to prove he could stand alone. When Jonathan Antoine went solo, everyone was watching, and no one expected what came next. His first solo album, Tenor, dropped in 2014 under Sony Classical, and it didn't just land softly, it exploded. Critics who once doubted his independence were floored. The voice was stronger, more textured. Jonathan had taken the pain, pressure, and power of his past and poured it into every note. The album dominated classical charts and made it clear he wasn't just surviving without Charlotte, he was thriving. But listen to this. Over the next few years, Jonathan didn't just release albums, he built entire emotional landscapes. Albums like Believe in Going the Distance weren't just music, they were cinematic. Orchestrated with the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra and filled with personal meaning, these records showed a creative evolution few artists ever achieve. He didn't play it safe. He recorded Baby Mine from Disney and Nessun Dorma back to back. He shaped albums into stories, 3-act operas that fused classical grandeur with modern vulnerability. And it worked. Audiences connected deeply. Critics took notice. But here's why it matters. With each release, Jonathan took more creative control. He wasn't just a performer, he was becoming a visionary, someone who could shape sound into emotion and give voice to struggle, triumph, and everything in between. And just when it seemed like he'd reached his peak, he opened up about something that would make his rise even more powerful. From the outside, Jonathan Antoine was living the dream. Chart-topping albums, global tours, millions of adoring fans. But behind the applause was a silent battle that nearly stole it all. Because while his voice soared, Jonathan was quietly fighting to keep his head above water. What most people didn't know was that Jonathan had struggled with his weight since the age of 4. The spotlight made it worse. Every performance came with whispers. Every photo came with scrutiny. Add in the mental scars from years of bullying, and you've got a storm no standing ovation could silence. But it gets crazier. In one candid moment, Jonathan revealed he was diagnosed with autism just 2 years ago. Suddenly, everything clicked. His sensitivity, his anxiety, the overwhelming emotions that had followed him since childhood. It wasn't just pressure, it was neurological. But instead of hiding it, he shared it with the world. Stick with me, because this next part explains everything. After years of battling shame, Jonathan chose health, not for fame, but for survival. He started walking 10,000 steps a day, lost over 50 pounds, and learned how to manage a thyroid condition that had been quietly wreaking havoc on his body. But this wasn't just about the physical. It was about reclaiming power, reframing the narrative. And as he opened up about mental health, autism, and resilience, something unexpected happened. His fan base didn't just support him, it exploded. Because in the end, people weren't just cheering for the voice. They were cheering for the man who finally found his. Just when Jonathan Antoine was finding balance in his career and health, something else entered his life. Something unexpected. A quiet force that would reignite his passion, ground his heart, and reshape his music forever. Her name, Michelle Deuce, and their love story didn't begin with red carpets or record labels. It began online. It sounds crazy, but it's true. They met through a digital conversation. Jonathan, the world-famous tenor, and Michelle, a Canadian woman with no music industry ties. But there was something about her, something that saw past the fame and into the heart of the man behind the music. Their bond grew quickly, defying distance and circumstance, until Michelle became not just a partner, but a muse. But here's where it gets even better. During an emotional interview on Loose Women, Jonathan didn't just talk about Michelle. He credited her as the light of his life and the inspiration behind his album Believe. Every lyric, every note, every orchestral swell was infused with the energy of their connection. This wasn't just romance. It was rebirth, and that's just the beginning. Their relationship gave Jonathan a new emotional gear, where his earlier work was full of longing and struggle. Believe was hopeful, confident, and alive with joy. He wasn't just performing anymore, he was living, and it showed. So what caused all this? One person, one chance encounter, one honest connection that reminded him why he sings in the first place. Because sometimes the right person doesn't just support your journey, they help you rewrite it. And as Jonathan's love life bloomed, so did something else. A deeper, more meaningful relationship with his fans. Jonathan Antoine isn't just followed, he's felt. And if you've ever seen his fans online, you know it's not your typical like and share kind of support. These people cry during his performances, fly across oceans to see him live, and leave messages that read more like love letters than fan comments. But the real twist, Jonathan feels just as connected to them. What happened next will shock you. Most celebrities keep fans at arm's length, but Jonathan did the opposite. Through a project called By Request, he invited fans to be part of his creative process. Literally. They chose songs, submitted ideas, and even joined his recording sessions virtually. It was unprecedented. Not just a fan club, but a co-creation movement. But that's not all. He started naming fans in his liner notes. People like Sally Ann Adams, Lynn Anderson, and Patricia Bade, ordinary listeners who became part of his legacy. This level of connection wasn't just rare, it was revolutionary, and it reshaped the artist-audience dynamic in a way the classical world had never seen before. Now here's the twist. Jonathan wasn't just giving back, he was building something deeper. A global community bound not by fame, but by shared emotion. Shared triumph, shared pain. His openness about autism and mental health resonated in a way that made people feel seen, really seen for the first time. He turned music into more than melody. It became a message. You belong, you matter, and we're in this together. And just when you thought his fan base couldn't grow any stronger, he started using his voice for something even bigger than music. Most artists use their voice to entertain. Jonathan Antoine uses his to heal. As his fame grew, he made a choice most don't. He didn't just talk about change, he became it. And what he's done off stage might just be more powerful than anything he's sung on it. Let's rewind for a second. Jonathan has never forgotten what it felt like to be voiceless. The bullying, the isolation, the quiet tears behind closed doors. So once he had a platform, he made a promise to make sure others never felt that alone again. And that promise turned into action. But listen to this. He didn't just lend his name to causes. He rolled up his sleeves. He became a patron of the Katie Holmes Trust to support pediatric brain tumor research. He raised funds for mental health initiatives. He joined Classic FM's Make Some Noise campaign to help the isolated and unheard. And through every effort, he made it clear. This wasn't charity. It was personal. Here's why that matters. Jonathan knows the scars of being misunderstood. So when he co-authored the children's book, Jonathan the Porcupine, he packed it with messages of self-worth, kindness, and inner strength. A second volume is already in the works. These stories aren't just for kids, they're lifelines. They're the books Jonathan wishes he had growing up. And just when you think his compassion can't stretch further, he speaks out against bullying, advocates for autism awareness, and encourages open conversations about mental health. Because for Jonathan, success isn't measured in sales, it's measured in lives touched, and his journey isn't slowing down. In fact, the next chapter is already in motion. You thought his story peaked after Britain's Got Talent. Think again. Jonathan Antoine isn't winding down. He's winding up, and his latest moves prove he's only scratched the surface of what he's capable of. Don't scroll yet. This next part explains everything. In recent years, Jonathan has been pushing boundaries far beyond classical music. He wrote a children's book. He's experimenting with voice acting for video games. He's been performing across the globe, from the elegance of Ephesus to the energy of Vietnam. And in 2023, he announced an Australian tour that's more than just performances. It's a celebration of how far he's come. But here's where it gets wild. Jonathan's working on a brand new studio project, and he's not doing it alone. Through the By Request platform, he's letting fans shape the album in real time. Song choices, creative input, direct involvement. It's like nothing classical music has ever seen before. An artist and his audience building something together note by note, and the results? Already turning heads. The early feedback is overwhelming. Fans are calling it his most personal work yet. Some say it's the tip of the iceberg, a hint of something deeper, stronger, unstoppable beneath the surface. Here's why that matters. Jonathan Antoine isn't just a tenor, he's a storyteller, a fighter, a symbol of what's possible when you refuse to let pain define you. With a $4 million net worth, international acclaim, and an unshakable sense of purpose, he's doing more than living a dream. He's reshaping what dreams can look like. So what really happened to Jonathan Antoine after Britain's Got Talent? He turned the spotlight into a stage, and now the world is listening.